And ladies and gentlemen, we are live. It is Monday, August 15th, 2022. And this is the Voice of Reason podcast. As always, my name is Sean Phillips. And today I am joined alongside my co host, Mr. Andy Van Beber. We are without our good friend Travis Kirkendall, who is stuck in Chicago traffic, meaning he'll probably be home tomorrow sometime. So V, how are you? How was your weekend? What's your
Dude,
week shaping up
I,
to
I
look
want to
like?
tell you,
How's it going?
I had the most amazing weekend ever. The kids and I went camping on Thursday night, and we had an absolute blast. Slept comfortably as we could in a tent on a rock, but it was great. It was actually a great time.
Mm-hmm.
We went to Harry J's Steakhouse, which is a local here it's in Moscow Mills, and I love steak at Harry J's. And then Saturday we went what's called geocaching, kind of a uh, I don't know, it's an overglorified treasure hunt kind of thing. I don't know if you've ever heard of it or not before.
Mm.
So it's just basically you get these apps and there's stuff hidden all over. I mean, all over the United States, and it's just like these little capsules, and they have a log, and you can write your name on it. Some of them are bigger, and they have like you leave something and you take something, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we did that, and then we went to McDinger's Saturday night, and then yesterday, of course, busy day for church. Today, just odds and ends of stuff I had to get done, and then tomorrow is my first. I get to go back and work for a living. So uh,
Hey, there we
yeah,
go.
and we took my daughter to her first cross country. My daughter's first Missouri State Schools Athletic Association event. So she is practice what rather. So she is going to be coached by our good friend Landon Hall in cross country. So
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah, yeah. For those of you guys that don't know, like our small school area, yeah, some of our former students from our alma mater or my alma mater, and where he currently teaches, yeah, just got hired and are getting ready to start
yeah,
the new year. So it's
very,
exciting. Yeah,
very
yeah, yeah.
exciting. And before we begin tonight, Sean, you may have to look at this on your phone or on your computer if you're watching.
Mhm.
But this popped up. I'm going to share this with the folks out in Facebook land. So today, this was the first thing that popped up on my memories today. Today marks my 7-year friendship anniversary with Sean Phillips. And if you look at that picture right there, he's looking at, and I took that picture on my camera, and he's looking at me like, V, for real? You're doing that, and you
Yep.
notice the droop see, you can see the droop without the beard on. And then there's our good buddy Chris Mayer there in the background saying, oh, yep, we'll pay for that one later.
Yep.
So, but yeah, that was
100%.
7 7 years ago. So Sean and I have been Facebook friends, but I thought that was quite interesting. Good evening, Mr. Vincent. We're glad to see you on this evening. Yeah, but that was I saw that. That was the first thing I saw this morning, and it was just
A good way to start your Monday
oh
is what that
my
is.
gosh, seeing the droop. I don't know. You don't notice the droop anymore, but man,
I do.
huh? Yeah,
I
yeah,
said I definitely do, but that's neither here nor there.
yeah. So how was your
But
how
yeah,
was your weekend
so
then, buddy? What happened on your end?
um good. What happened on my end? Not a lot. It was a pretty kind of lazy weekend. We kind of did a date night. We went to a new place out here, which was great. I went to church. I found a church out here that I've been going to on Sundays that I really do enjoy.
Fantastic.
Julian went with me. Yeah, she liked it. It's cool. It's a Beverly Hills Presbyterian church. They do like an adult like Bible study thing that I've really grown accustomed to
Very cool. Very
liking
cool.
and doing. Yeah, so it's been fun. And then just kind of getting ready. The week started busy already, meetings and stuff for work and interviews and stuff like that. So always busy, never bored. But yeah, we're getting ready to tackle the rest of the week headstrong. There's going to be a lot going on the next couple of weeks for me. So
And I think it's good that we
definitely.
we give you a free plug too. That if you go to Sean's Facebook page, you will see on his Facebook page the organization that he works with, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And
So this is the organization, the United Wrestling Network. Yep. If you go check out on my Facebook page, is a link to our Championship Wrestling presented by Car Shield. This episode has Frankie Kazarian in it. It's a great episode, great match. Came out yesterday, so yeah.
And I was just starting to watch it before we came on, so I'm looking. That'll be something that'll be part of my nighttime viewing before I go to sleep this evening. So
yeah, and it is TV PG, so it's good for the kids and all that good stuff as well. So yeah,
since we're talking TV,
mm-hmm.
I mean tonight's title was "Are we binge worthy?" So
nice.
Yeah, I mean,
depending on who you ask, some people will tell you yes. I know individuals that have straight up told me and have showed me their Spotify of they're like, yeah, I had like an 8-hour car ride and I listened to the Voice of Reason the entire time.
Yeah, I actually had a student who said that. They said we listened to you on the way back from Gulf. It was like a month ago. They said we started listening to you when we left Gulf Shores and we listened to you the whole way home. And I said, that's like a 10-hour trip.
Wild?
And I was just like, holy cow. But yeah, man, I mean, when you ask somebody, what is your primary source for entertainment, whether it's video, audio, or whatever, because really, I don't know. Maybe you do, Sean. I really don't know anybody who straight just goes off the old antenna up on top of the house anymore. I mean, do you?
No, it's few and far between. I know that there's people that just have the antenna, but they have other things. They might not have cable, but they use other. It would be. I would actually be very interested to see if there's an individual out there that doesn't have cable nor a type of streaming service.
Well, and so when I moved into this house has an antenna on it, and so there's one. I plugged it. I wired it to where there's TV in the kids' playroom, and it picks up. You have digital television now, which basically you can. You have one station that basically programs broadcasts 3 to 4 different stations. But the whole thing with when I was growing up, and I'm sure some of you all who are out there who are listening tonight, when I was growing up, I don't know what it was. I'll ask you here in a second, Sean, but when I was growing up, so what we had, and Dad had it was like what we called the tripod TV tower that went up. You attached it to your house. You set it in about 1.5 feet of concrete. You attached it to your house. You had this big boom antenna that went up, and you picked up. And if you were really high dollar family, you had a rotor that you could control from inside your house that you could turn your antenna, and you could pick up just multiple different stations. And my dad actually still has his boom antenna. And my dad, he streams just pretty much, he does DirecTV now, but he used to, my dad could pick up, of course he can pick up the St. Louis market. He can pick up the Quincy. He lives over by Springfield, and he's got, that TV antenna is up 40 foot above his house. And so he can pick up the Quincy market. He can pick up the Springfield market. He can pick up the Peoria, Illinois market. And if he wanted to, just, but now, what did you have growing up?
So growing up, when I lived in Iowa, we didn't have cable. We had satellite. We had the bunny rabbit antenna ears. That's what we had. Like literally, I think we got like Fox, maybe, and like PBS. As a child, I watched PBS at my house, and we had I'll never forget the day. One of the best gifts we ever got was Mom and Dad bought one of those big. I always call them a Thunderbox TV. That's why I don't know why I call them that, but when they just had the big butt side of the big chunky TVs.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
like
CRTs, yeah.
yeah,
Cathode
yeah,
ray
yeah, yeah.
tubes. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but, well, it wasn't quite one of those big ones. It was just had the, it was probably, now that I look at it, back in the day, it was the largest TV I'd ever seen, but probably like 14 inches. Um, but it had a DVD and VHS player built in.
Oh,
Like, this thing was
okay. I
legit.
get what you're saying now. Okay. Yeah, because it
Yeah,
had
yeah,
the
yeah.
thing and then down below. Right. Got you.
Yeah, it was so slick, and so we would watch, VHSs, DVDs, and then, I'll never forget one of the very integral parts of my childhood was, I had a Game Boy Advance
Oh.
that I got for Christmas one year. Oh yeah, but I remember Fridays we would go to Blockbuster, and we'd go to Blockbuster, and I could pick out a DVD or a VHS and a video game, and then we'd get Little Caesars or Domino's Pizza, and that was Friday nights. That was like prime years of being a kid and not having to worry in the world, and that was kind of how we did it. Like, my cable, when I was able to watch cable, would come.
Mhm.
So this is so funny. This is actually kind of a funny story. Um, I would watch Scooby Doo. So sometimes after school, not all the time, but sometimes I'd go. My dad was a manager. He like helped run a homeless shelter, and at the homeless shelter, they had a room where they had a TV that had cable, and I would go there and I would watch Scooby Doo with all the homeless people watching TV. Because when I got there, they're like, "Ah, Sean's here. Let's put on cartoons." And I would watch cartoons. And then we'd go we'd then help with like the soup kitchen. Well, then I was a big fan of a show back in the day called Ed, Edd n Eddy. I loved Ed,
Oh,
Edd n Eddy. It
yeah.
was a
Yep.
great show.
Yep.
So, but we didn't have cable. So what we would do is my mom worked with someone who had cable and had boys, my age or a little bit younger, and they watched Cartoon Network. So what we did was we had two different VHS tapes, and
There we
on one, like, they would record the like 8 hours worth of Cartoon Network from like 4 to 10 p.m. basically, would record Cartoon Network on one tape, and then the next day she'd get, so we'd rotate tapes.
Oh, that's
So then I'd
awesome.
I'd always
That's
be
awesome.
I'd be a day behind, but I would get Cartoon Network that way. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It
And
that's
yeah, it was
you know,
it was the perfect setup. It worked great.
interesting fact. In the world today, there is still one operating Blockbuster Video. One.
Yeah, I've and they
It's,
also do like Airbnb out of it or something?
it's outside of Portland. It's outside. I
Yeah,
looked
yeah,
this.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
outside of Portland. I think it's Bend or Bennett or something like that. Bennett or Bend,
Uh-huh.
Oregon, and you can go there and visit, and you can. I mean it. I mean, apparently it's still operating, but I mean,
Really?
when and yeah, so a lot of people are. Tara says her granddad has only an antenna. I have an antenna plus. Michael Vincent said we had the big console TV with the bunny ears with aluminum foil on them. TV had the
Mm.
knobs that you had. Oh my god! I was the remote for my father. Get up, turn that TV knob.
Yep.
Colby Coleman says his first cable bill was $25. Kyle
Wow.
McGuire, he's like, back in the day, that show came out in like 99 or 2000, Sean. Uh,
You
back,
talking about Ed, Edd n Eddy?
yeah, yeah.
That's a good show.
So,
That's a good show.
but so the options that we have today, uh, so my research this afternoon, so there are over 200 different streaming subscription services available.
Wow. Wow.
200. What's your take on that? I mean, you wanted to lead in with what's your what do you think? What's your thoughts on this stuff? As far
You know, I think I'll never forget when, um, like, when Netflix first became a thing. Um,
Mhm.
and I specifically remember because so when Netflix first launched, it was like DVDs that came with you in the mail,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
Well, then they launched their streaming service, and one of the Xbox Live, actually, also, you could get Netflix on your Xbox. what was really cool about it was that Xbox has a function that's called a party mode, where you can chat with your friends. Well, back in the day, they don't do this anymore, but back in the day, you could get on Netflix when you were in a party, and what it would do is it would make it look like you were in your little avatar guy you created was in a theater with the people in your party, and it would sync all of your guys' Netflix, so you'd be watching the program at the
So
same time.
a
So if someone
watch
paused
party.
it, it would pause it.
Watch party. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. As we all know, Netflix used to pretty much have everything, and then it's as the years have gone by and more streaming services have opened. I mean, now it's a pretty, I don't know, I almost want to say like it's oversaturated in a way. Like, here's the thing: I understand why these companies want their properties on their streamers. I get it. I totally, totally, totally get it. The issue is back in the day when it, like, the big thing that these companies would say was cut the cable, cut the cable, cut the cable, cut the cable.
Mm-hmm.
And now, if you want to have the same stuff you basically get on cable, you have to have the streaming services.
Exactly.
And some of them, like Netflix, if I'm not mistaken, for like is almost $20 a month now, something like
15,
that. 18 bucks.
We just resubscribed last month, and it's $14.99. It's actually, so you can get a $9.99 one device only. So we tried that for a while, and then like Janine, her and Briley binge watched all of Stranger Things. I still haven't gotten into that thing. Yeah. And you kind of turned me on to Joe Coy, and I was wanting to. I was actually on the road traveling, and I wanted to watch Joe Coy, and we couldn't do it at the same time. And I just called Janine real quick. I said, "Hey, I'm going to upgrade to the 2." She said, "That's fine." But here's a fact about Netflix, and Netflix. So as of the end of 2021, Netflix has 220. It is the leading streaming service. It has 222 million subscribers, an increase of over 18 million from the previous year. Netflix recording an increase of 37 billion paid subscriptions in 2020. Now, something else interesting. Netflix, and you and I have talked about their product. I remember talking about this last season when we had your actor friend on. And is it in Arizona? Yeah. Are they kind of Netflix? Albuquerque. And so as of May 2021, Netflix has more than 3,700 movies, 3,500 TV series in its library. Netflix has spent 2020, Netflix spent $12.5 billion on content, which rose to $17.4 billion last year. Okay? And, of course, their most watched show last year. This year, we all know what their most watched show is right now. Stranger Things. Last year, most watched show last year was Squid Game with 1.65 billion viewing hours. Okay? Now, so this other fact that I'll have to find it here, but it talked about of all the streaming. I'll have to find the stat. But is Netflix? I mean, you were right though when that was the death of your Blockbuster. That was the death of your Family Video Store, because you could what was it with Netflix? You could pay for one disc at a time, or like 2 disc or 3 disc, right?
They had different tiers, same kind of thing. Like, I remember when we first got it. So it was, if you wanted like a disc at a time or something, like, but unlimited throughout the month, but it was just like one disc out at a time, unlimited, it was like, I don't know, $7.99. And then I think for like $9.99 or that same price of $7.99, I can't remember.
Yeah, it was.
You could get one disc. You could get the disc, and
right.
You'd have the streaming service as well. And then that kind of just, I don't even know if they do the discs anymore. I don't know if that's still a thing that Netflix does.
That's a great question, and I don't know that. The thing that really blew my mind, so the global streaming industry in 2021 was $60.1 billion in subscriptions worldwide. $60.1 billion. Okay. They're saying by 2030, this is, who did this research? This was, it was some research, one of the research people, but they said by 2030 that the streaming service industry will be worth over $330 billion if continued at its increased rate. Now, during the lockdown in March of 2020, the U.S. streaming audience watched a massive, hold on to this, 160 billion minutes of content. That is the equivalent of 304,414 years of straight watching. Let that just sink in just for a second. And that's just America. That's just America. We are consuming more. We're consuming more. What's the word I want? Visual entertainment than we have in all of previous years of all. I mean, from back in the day of the, you know, the reel film, you know, that was invented by Thomas Edison, to the first tube TV, to flat, to now. We have consumed more in the last 3 years. We have consumed more on-screen media time than all of that time put together, and then some.
Yeah, it's it's insane.
What would you say is the biggest increase for that?
Well, I think part of it is just accessibility. Like, you know, we are now at a point in time where everyone has a phone that has internet, and here's the thing: shows are being made for the small screen. Like they're making content, not just, as we know, like they're not making, not in all cases, they're not just making movies for theaters anymore. They're making movies that are supposed to be viewed from the pleasure of your own home. That's kind of how they're catering these things. And it's the same thing. Everything has to be accessible through your phone. And even so, one thing I wanted to add, because I found this article. So due to the last quarter of the numbers, Disney actually surpassed for the first time. If you combine Disney Plus, Hulu, ESPN, all properties that are owned by Disney,
right?
Because of the number drop. So Netflix dropped. They lost in the last quarter 2 million subscribers. They're down to 220.
Okay.
Disney, Hulu, ESPN Plus combined now are at 221 million subscribers. So at least for the quarter, Disney, like, it's going to be neck and neck. It's going to be bottom
right.
And
neck. This was
right.
And this information that I'm presenting came from the end of 2021. So yeah,
exactly.
And mention that merger too.
Yes. So back in the days, many of you guys know, like, Disney bought a bunch of different properties. They bought Fox Spotlight. They bought ESPN a few years back. Remember, these are the same things like when they bought Marvel. The umbrella is continuing to grow, and Disney's umbrella isn't the only one that's growing. Like, if you look at Amazon, Amazon has purchased MGM, which is one of the largest movie producers. For example,
one of the oldest,
the people
too.
that made James Bond. You know, when you see the lion, the roar, you know, like that's MGM. You now have Paramount Plus, which is all of the Viacom and CBS umbrella. So Viacom being your MTV,
MTV, VH1, Nickelodeon,
CMT, Nickelodeon, all of that. Yep. And then you have Peacock, your NBC. Now Peacock, in my opinion. So right now, this is the numbers breakdown that I got from what's considered like the big five. So right now on top, as I just said, you got Disney Plus, Hulu, ESPN Plus, that we're going to rope in an umbrella. I pay for the 3 subscription.
I do too.
It's $20 a month, and I love it. Then we have Netflix at 220 million. So the next one is Amazon Prime, but we're not just basing that based off like the people that have Amazon Prime, like the streaming service. It's if you pay for Amazon Prime, you get Amazon Prime streaming service, which currently tops out at 148.6
Yep.
million people that are currently subscribed to Amazon Prime as of 2022.
I'm one of those.
Then we have Paramount Plus, which their numbers were a lot higher than I saw, but this is according to Statista, which is usually pretty good about these things. 39.6 million. But I think where that comes in is they've played pretty well to some of the foreign market. And the Nickelodeon thing's pretty big. It's a lot bigger for a lot of parents with kids. The next one is Peacock with 24.5 million. Now, here's the thing, though. Peacock is having the fastest growth. Within a year, they jumped over. I read it was like 18 million subscribers in a year.
Yep.
So part of that is they signed a 5-year $1 billion deal with the WWE. One of the other big driving forces that NBC has is they do have access to NFL games because of their NBC affiliate, and Paramount should also, just CBS does not have as many as NBC. But also, Peacock is the American USA and NBC Peacock are the American streaming platform for the Premier League. So for soccer. And for those of you that aren't big soccer fans, the Premier League is considered one of the largest, if not the largest, most quote unquote important soccer league in the world. So when you think like big names, it's Premier League. The next league down is La Liga, which has a deal with ESPN. So all La Liga games are on ESPN.
On ESPN Plus, right?
Now the next one, and mind you, this next one actually has more. I had it out of order, so I do apologize. Is HBO Max at 48.6 million? But they kind of inspired what this whole conversation was going to be about, because HBO Max is currently doing a merger with their partner company Discovery. So here's the thing: Discovery. When we as Americans go Discovery, like who gives a shit about Discovery? Where does Discovery have the money? And it's Discovery. It's their foreign influence. Discovery is actually the network. Like there's a ton of these other shows that we watch under different umbrellas that are all under the Discovery umbrella.
And I'll give you a perfect. My sister-in-law subscribes to the Discovery. I think right now the standalone is called Discovery Plus or something like that.
Discovery Plus.
Yeah. So my sister-in-law, and it's $5.99 a month, and that includes. So if I'm not mistaken, that includes all. And there are, I want to say, because I actually have. We'll talk about the illegal side of it here in a second. But there's a Discovery. There's like 4 or 5 different Discovery channels. Then you have, I believe, Does Animal Planet fall underneath that umbrella? So you have Animal Planet.
I think so. Yep.
And so then you have the HGTV. You have and Magnolia, which is the fixer-upper people. I can't think of their name.
Joanna and Chip Gaines.
Yeah. So that's also
Joanna and Chip Gaines. Yeah.
And my sister-in-law bought Discovery Plus simply for the fact that she could have access to Magnolia. Now, you can buy Magnolia separate. If you just want Magnolia, I think it's like $1.99 a month just for Magnolia.
Wow.
And you can do Magnolia. So, like you said, Sean, think about what that is going to be a game changer for HBO Max, because, I mean, what will that... Because what do you say? They're like number 5 or 6 on the list. Then is that where HBO Max is right now?
If we go off this number, they're technically number 4. But the way that it's going to look is HBO Max is going to be merged into Discovery. So what it kind of looks like is it's overall going to be just rebranded into Discovery Plus. People are going to pay for Discovery Plus, and essentially what it's going to kind of look like is, you can pay for, the normal Discovery Plus and then pay extra to add the HBO tab. So I'm assuming the HBO Max is going to fall under kind of like, if you go to Peacock and you go to like the WWE tab, that's where their library is it's its own tab. And so I'm assuming that's what's going to happen to HBO Max.
And so that's Time Warner, right? HBO Max is Time Warner.
Yes. Yeah,
It's
like
Time
Warner Brothers.
Warner Brothers. And so we got to, and so and this actually, I'm kind of going off of my own, out on my own order here, but one of the reasons why we originally dropped Netflix, and this is one of the top reasons why people drop one streaming service and goes over to another, is because that other streaming service dropped a show and the other one picked it up. Case in point, I'm guilty. I know Sean will shake his head at this, but when Netflix dropped Friends, they lost a ton of people. I was one of those people. When I was driving back and forth from Pittsfield to Clopton every day, 45-minute drive, I could get in. I mean, that was kind of my therapy to help me deprogram on the way home. And Kyle McGuire said a while ago, there's people who drive down the road with it streaming. Yes, Kyle, KFK, I am one of those people. And I just something to listen to help my mind just kind of, I wasn't actively watching it. I was more listening to it than I was watching it. But when they took Friends off, I was like, at the time, Netflix didn't have, and this has been 4 or 5 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago maybe. And their big drawback then was the whole orange is the new black thing. And that was like, but then they got House of Cards, and then they produced, and then they came out with, what was it, 3 years ago, Stranger Things, and now they've got the Squid, and so it is becoming more of an independent industry, and I kind of wanted to see your thoughts on this too, Sean. It's becoming an independent industry where more big names are going to, big stars are going to Netflix and your Amazons and all these and making movies with these guys. There's a movie I want to watch on Netflix right now. It's got Woody Harrelson and Kevin Hart in it, and it's called The Man from Toronto. I want to watch it. That's on my list. Last week, Janine and I watched, and I'll recommend this on Amazon. It's called 13 Alive, or 13 Lives. And it was about the Thai soccer team that was stuck in the cave. And it has, I got to think about who was in it now, but it had big names, but it was, and if it's not up for an award this year, it was a riveting, kept you on the edge of your seat for 2 hours. It was a great movie. And I mean, what do you think the future of this is going to be? I mean, how is the movie industry going to adapt? We're seeing how they're trying to adapt right now, but how do you see them adapting to compete against this?
So I think there's a couple different things, and one of the big ones, and I'll circle to why I'm going to mention this, that I left off was Apple TV. Apple TV, with paid subscribers and promotional subscribers, had about 75 million. So a lot of that's like Apple will give you a free year of it for purchasing an iPhone. So like, do those count? Maybe, maybe not. But 50 million on top of the 25. I digress. But so here's a couple different things, and this is based off of like some of the news articles I've read about like what's kind of happening with the industry. So one of the big things is a lot of within the last 2 years, it was good for it was good for consumer pocketbooks in a sense where they started releasing, and this wasn't just Netflix. All companies started releasing movies direct to streamers. Or very like soon after they were coming out, they were sending them to theater, or not theaters, streamers.
Just to stream.
Now that we're getting out of that box of we're no longer like in the pandemic era of it being, like a so scary pandemic as it was for the last 2 years.
Right.
All of these CEOs are all kind of saying like, yeah, the straight to streamer thing's done. Like we're putting movies back in theaters. Like that's the big thing that HBO's going for is they're done. So they canceled $100 million movie. They canceled Batgirl, and it's not like it's not gonna show up eventually. No, they axed the film. It was made for HBO Max. They've axed it. They made a sequel to the movie Scoob. $50 million budget, and they've axed it. It will not be released. Same with the individuals with Disney, with their Fox movies, their movies like Avatar and all their Marvel stuff. Marvel is moving away from putting their movies directly on streamer, and the television shows like their Marvel
But
TV shows will
yeah,
stay on.
but let me. But
But the movies,
can I interrupt something on that? Just was before I
sure.
lose that thought. So I was watching highlights. Janine and I were watching highlights from Comic Con last
Uh-huh.
weekend, and it looks like in Phase 5, and Kevin Feige introduced Phase 5 and Phase 6 though, and I counted Daredevil, She-Hulk, Echo. What was the other
Mhm.
one? It still seems like though, I mean, they're keeping it interesting. I mean, there's Marvel's still going to do they're still going to do their screen thing, but I think to still keep you looped in and keep you connected in the MCU, they're going to release that fair balance of relatable content that's going to connect to the movie. So, I mean, I can see what you're saying there.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely like I think when it comes to like the big movies, those are going to start to be back in theaters. Theaters are going to have a comeback, and I saw that here in LA. Like when I went and saw Elvis, it was a packed theater, like legitimately,
Mm-hmm.
because Thor: Love and Thunder came out that same weekend. Like it was packed,
Yeah.
which is good. It's
Yeah.
good for theaters. Like the theater experience is important. Top Gun Maverick, I never saw in theaters, but I've heard is like if you didn't see it in theaters, you kind of missed out on like a once in a
Yes.
lifetime kind of
Yep.
movie. Um, but one thing that I kind of want to go back to that's not so much focusing on movies, but I think this is me personally, the big winner of the streaming services is not going to be in movies. It's not just going to be in television shows. I think that those things are important. Yes. I think they're one of like probably 50%, but I think where we're going to see in America, at least, maybe not around the world, but in America, I think the big winners are going to be the streamers that do the best with live sports.
Yes. Yep.
And predominantly, and it should not be a shocker to anybody, the NFL
NFL
is
Plus.
is going to be so NFL Plus has now come out, which I'm actually like bummed about. So for the last several years, the way that I have watched my football games is the NFL Fantasy Football app would allow you to watch whatever local market games were
Mm-hmm.
on your phone for free. You didn't have to pay a dime. So all you had to do was just take a VPN and ping it that your phone was in whatever local market you wanted to watch your stuff, which thankfully I never really had to do because Green Bay was a local Missouri team. So I got to watch every Green Bay game. Yay for me. But so
now you're screwed.
Now you have to pay. It's $4.99 a month or $20 for the year. But again, that's not all games. That's only the local. Your local. There's still going to be a ton of blackouts.
Right.
Now, there's other leagues that are doing things differently. MLS, Major League Soccer, signed a 10-year deal worth $2.5 billion with Apple. Was way more than people anticipated the league was going to get. But there's going to be no blackouts. The issue is, there's no longer going to be local or regional broadcast. There will be national broadcast of games, but all games will be on Apple TV Plus or Apple TV. Again, we talked about Peacock. They have the Premier League, which in America isn't the big thing, but I would not be surprised if we saw a push for them to do more NFL games.
And you are seeing
ESPN has La Liga. They also have they signed a 5-year, $1.5 billion deal with the UFC, and making it to where there will be 30 live events each year for free on ESPN Plus.
Wow.
That does not include the pay-per-view. So basically, once a week, there's going to be UFC on ESPN Plus.
And you mentioned Apple TV. Apple TV right now, too, I want to add this in. Apple TV is toying with MLB right now. And
yes, Friday night games.
Games. And they're
1 year, $85 million per year.
And they're doing that because they're looking, because of all the stuff you're saying, Sean, Apple TV is looking to gain, because right now you can get what's called MLB League Pass, which again, local blackouts. Okay. And so, and everybody who knows me knows that I am an Apple guy through and through. So Apple got on, but I'm not an Apple TV guy. There's not Apple shows that I watch. There's not Apple anything I watch. But so this last year, Apple introduced Apple Plus. Okay. So I was paying $9.99 a month for 2 terabytes worth of cloud storage for my family. And I was also paying, and I do all my music streaming, which we'll get to here in a little bit, but I do all my music streaming, I do all my DJ stuff with Apple Music for $14.99 a month. Those two together, then that's $24.99 a month, $25. Okay. Apple Plus now gives you, then there's 2 tiers to this. You can do Apple, but with Apple Plus, what I get is, I get my music service, I get my 2 terabytes of storage, I get Apple TV for $21.99 a month. Okay. Now, for an extra $3, you can add in the fitness app, and you can add in their library of all of their subscriptions, like to your Wall Street Journals, your Washington Post, your whatever newspaper, and you can get that added in. So for $24 a month, you can do that. And so Apple Plus, like you said, with all these other groups, are doing the sports thing, and so they're trying to get, and you said $85 million for 1 year for one night a week. And and I think what they're trying to do is to see what kind of deal they can get with MLB, and if they can get a good decent deal with MLB, and Kyle said with NHL having games on Hulu this past year, I figured MLB would follow that pattern somehow. So yeah. And so Hulu, I forgot about that. Hulu also has NHL games. So
the only issue that I've had with NHL is there's a ton of blackouts on Hulu, if I'm not mistaken, which is a bummer. Which needs to change, because here's my thing. I know for a fact people would pay more money if look if you think about it, this MLS deal. I know that there's not a lot of soccer fans, and there's really not a lot of American soccer fans
because it's not available.
Because it's not available, and people are going to complain if you didn't have, you can't get it locally, you can't get, but it's $4 a month, $5 a month, you have all the games. Every single game is going to be on Apple TV, which is huge. And another one that I forgot to mention with Amazon, they pay $1 billion a year just for Thursday Night Football.
Yes.
Just for Thursday
I had that on my
football.
list too. Yeah.
Which is crazy, because I genuinely believe Amazon has the two. Well, there's 3, but really the two that really have the play that basically have endless pockets are Amazon and Apple. I think those are the two that genuinely have the pocketbooks to play the big game. Because one thing that I've heard about, I've not watched an MLB game on Apple TV, but I've heard 2 things. I've heard the commentators are horrendous.
Yes, they are.
But I've also heard that they have some of the best cameras, and it's not even close.
So I watched a bit. So the Angels, I think it was the Angels and the Rangers were playing, and I'm not a fan of either one. But I was going through my phone and just blowing some time. And if you have, so I have I have an Apple 13, an iPhone 13, and it's ultra. This is the only Ultra HD thing I have. And when I watched that game, and I did it full screen and I mean, granted, not a huge screen, but when I did that had to have been the best video quality live broadcast that I've ever seen. We got a little taste of it with the NFL last year when they did those, the end zone cameras they did the 4K cameras that they had,
the 8K
or
camera thing.
yeah, whatever they were.
Yeah.
But it was that kind of quality
all game long.
And it was
Wow.
but you were right. The broadcasting, I don't know who it was, and it may have been the local guys or whatever, but it was, I agree. It was just like listening to crickets or something, but it was, yeah.
Yeah. That's the one thing I've heard, is that the actual broadcasting stuff needs a bit of work. But like, if you think about it, could you imagine in about 5 years from now, you're paying for your Amazon, you're paying for Amazon Prime, and you could throw $20, extra on a month to have every NFL game.
Yes.
Because here's the thing. People were paying for Sunday Ticket, but now that Sunday Ticket's going to be gone from DirecTV, like
Amazon has you can get the Sunday Ticket with Amazon. Amazon has not Sunday Ticket. No. I'm sorry. Not Sunday Ticket. Red Zone.
Red Zone.
They have Red Zone.
So
you can get Red Zone.
Watch basically the highlights.
And that's usually what I watch anyway. One other thing before you go on to anything else, I wanted to talk about, and one of the things I'd never heard this term, but we know who they are. So they call them the FAST services, the free ad-supported streaming TV, which are your Pluto TV, your Tubies. Peacock has a fast version for like the night before episodes. The Roku's getting into this too. And that has grown from 20 to 2021 has grown 10%. So there are, 15 million? Yes. 18 million. I'm sorry. 18 million people say that they use the FAST. I do have, and I use Pluto too, because Pluto they have movies. You can click on a movie on Pluto, and IMBTV, which is now called Freevee. In my opinion, they have the best. Freevee is the best one that's out there, because like there's, I love Deadpool. If I ever, even though I have it on, it's not going to be on Disney Plus, but I go over and click on free, and they'll send you, hey, this is what so we've got a little bit of time left. I want to do the flip side of this though, Sean, and I sent you guys this thing today. What's happening? Obviously we know who the winners are. The losers, obviously.
I can tell you the losers right now are the actors and the actresses and the people that like content's made for. So here's an example why I say that is there was an article that a bunch of people like kind of tried to roast Sydney Sweeney, who is an actress who made her debut in the Euphoria HBO Max series,
right?
Where she plays like a pretty important character. Where she did an article that was talking about how she's like, one of the hard parts about the industry is that even though she did Euphoria, which was like one of the biggest shows of the year,
they had,
she only has living expenses for up to 6 months because she provides for her whole family. Mind you, lives in a nice home in California and Los Angeles.
But still,
regardless, lives a little bit differently than other people. But she was talking about how what's different is she has to do a lot of branding commercials and a lot of different appearances and stuff like that in order to make money in case she doesn't get booked in another show, even though she was really, really good. The issue is for a lot of these streamers, so like Netflix, for example, you get one check. You do not get residuals for streaming content because if it doesn't broadcast, there's no advertising. So like if you're on the most popular show that was ever on Netflix, cool. Netflix doesn't have to pay you extra because they might not be generating more money. So like when you do a movie for Netflix, you get your check. That's why you had all these, like your Adam Sandlers, your Dave Chappelle's getting 25 million, 20 million for special or for movie. Was because there was no way to make additional income afterwards. So it's like the days of where I would say the last big one that I can think of was the Big Bang Theory. Okay. You had people in the Big Bang Theory were making the main characters were making about $1 million per episode. And because it was in syndication, whenever it airs on like TBS or whatever it might be, they're going to be making money for life, good money for life. But these streaming services, these shows they're not going to be making residuals. So these shows that are giant, that are huge, you could find out that the actors might have made like 10 grand, 20 grand. And that was it. Like, biggest show in the world, and they're not getting anything for it. So that was like the big conversation around Squid Game. What Squid Game blew up was the most watched show for the year.
Those actors were paid squat.
Yeah, literally the entire budget of the entire series. So that was the argument, was the entire series, or I think it's like 6 or 7, 8 episodes or whatever of Squid Game had less of a budget than one of Dave Chappelle's specials, which was at like $20 million. So the budget of now, mind you, if you're a streamer and you have the #1 show in the world and you spent $20 million to make it, that's a big win. But for those actors, for those actresses, you could have been on a $50,000 salary, and it took 6 months to film. It's the biggest show in the world, but now
you're not getting paid.
Are you getting paid for merch? They don't do buy the stream penny. They don't do that. That's not how they work. They might have those deals with some of those superstars, but not your normal Joe Schmo. So all of these shows that are going, so that brings me to this point. There was a huge deal with Scarlett Johansson and Disney.
Yes,
they had a falling out when
that's on my list too.
Black Widow movie. When that Black Widow movie came out, because
majorly on that.
Part of her contract part of the deal was she would make money based off of box office performance. They put the movie straight on streamer with a $20 price tag on Disney Plus, and everyone looked at that and said, "I'll wait the month until it's free," and it didn't. And she didn't get a percentage of the $20.
It was like 3, wasn't it 3? It was like 3 to 5%, I believe, is what she was going to make off of it. Yeah. And I mean,
and they ended up settling. They ended up paying her. They ended up paying her a bunch of cash. Is what ended up happening.
Mm-hmm. I don't.
But it's just like that's going to be. That's an interesting.
I don't think. And you have the big names though who will sign. On the flip side of that too, though, you have the big names who, because Adam Sandler had signed a 3 or 4 movie deal thing with Netflix. Now, granted,
like $100 million.
Yeah, but granted, they weren't. And I love Sandler's one of my top 10 favorite comics. But there was it was like some kind of Magnificent Seven knockoff film that he had made, and I got like 5 minutes into it. I said, "God, this is terrible. This is terrible."
The one with him and David Spade. Where like they faked David Spade's death or whatever.
Yes.
Did you see that one?
I haven't seen that.
That one's good.
That one is good. Okay. Well,
yeah.
And so the other thing that I also want to pull out to this, and I briefly want to touch on music here in a second, but so your 2 biggest cable providers, Comcast and DirecTV, saw massive losses last year because of the fact that because of what happens with whatever happened with these streaming services. So the actual number, and let me bring this number up for you guys. So the Leakman Company, which is a research group, said in 2021, AT&T TV, which is AT&T, the Uverse, and all this other stuff, which owns DirecTV, lost 1.9 million subscribers in 2021. Okay. Dish Network did not see as much of a loss. They saw 595,000 lost customers. The U.S. satellite TVN overall saw a decline by 2.5 million customers last year. Comcast, which is the leading cable, I'm actually with Spectrum, which is a shoot off of Comcast. Comcast lost 1.67 million paying TV customers last year. Charter lost 367,000 last year. Verizon, Frontier, cable providers combined lost over 5.7 million subscribers last year. If you go to directtv.com, and my dad still pays for it, it's the easiest thing for him. He gets the $50 package. Now the $50 package is, I think, what they call their top 25. So you're paying for, and all my dad wants, for him, he wanted the Weather Channel, he wanted Fox, and my stepmom wanted Hallmark. Got it. Okay? But when you look at the amount, if you want, like, if you're the big movie and you want your premium movie channels and you want all your sports channels, like we've said, MLB, extra innings, the NFL, the NFL package, all of those things. When you combine all that in, you're looking at close to a $250 to $300 a month satellite bill. And the time is going to come, satellite had its day because, hey, back in the day, out in the country, you can't get cable TV. So but now, as we've talked about, all of these other things they are the ones who are going to be reaping the benefits, because the streaming services, because they're providing at a cheaper cost what the big guys did, and Netflix, or I'm sorry, Dish Network and DirecTV are trying to get in to now where DirecTV does DirecTV Plus. Dish Network has had Sling, and they're trying to do their thing. But it's still, for the money that you're paying, and they have different tiers of Sling, you're still paying $50-$60 a month. And then you have those guys who go off of that. You have Filio, you have, I'm trying to think, Filio, Fubo, a bunch of those streaming services, I give DirecTV, I give DirecTV and Dish 10, maybe 15 more years, maybe, before they're gone. So the other issue the other thing on this streaming thing I wanted to talk about then was was music, radio, and the leading music subscriber is one of our leading things, Spotify. Spotify is what are they, $5.99 a month, $10? I don't even know what they are. I
pay for the family plan, so I pay $15 a month.
Yeah.
So Tony and I both use Spotify.
And I'll talk about Apple Music because I know nothing about Spotify, but I go Apple Music because it works across all my platforms. When I use DJ, I can crossfade with it, but the downside to using, like, I used to use mixer programs that I could, crossfade and do stuff, but you can't do that with Apple Music. Spotify, you can use. Spotify has an app that you can actually do basic, like, DJ cross mixing buttons, the whole 9 yards with. But
nice.
But I like the convenience of, since I'm with Apple. What kind of things do you get with Spotify? Tell me some of what you get.
So one of the big things, I actually started with Spotify back in the day because it was free for students. Like, if you were in college, you got Spotify for free. I've always enjoyed it. Pretty much every, So what's funny is I actually, back in the day, so there was a company called Rhapsody.
Yes.
It kind of was like the original,
I remember Rhapsody.
The original streaming music service kind of like group. I don't know what happened with them to where they didn't. They weren't the ones that came out on top because they were the first, But no, Spotify. Honestly, like, I think what kept me with them for a while, I don't know. I think for me was I had friends that had Apple Music, and I don't know, like, Tony used Apple Music, and I guess at first the layout of it just really confused me. Like, the interface was confusing,
and they've improved on that.
Spotify is very streamlined.
Yep.
And then from there, a couple of, again, so this just goes, it's like the TV shows and all that. There are Spotify exclusives that I like. That, like one of the big ones for me for a while was, even though I don't really listen to it a whole lot anymore, was Joe Rogan.
Yep.
It's exclusive to Spotify, where it used to be on Apple Podcasts. I love the podcast app on I loved it. Another one that I've listened to a long time, Last Podcast on the Left. They were Spotify exclusive. They are no longer Spotify exclusive, so they're back on Apple Podcasts and all others. But there's that's the hard thing too, is like, man, when you want content, you just want it. You don't want to have to pay for this, that, or the other. And I feel like for me, at least, I'm not aware of anything that's on Apple that isn't on Spotify. But it's not just like, I know ones that are on Spotify that aren't on Apple, and that's why I stuck with Spotify.
Yeah. And again, I worry about, because I actually have one of Janine's classmates she's actually a syndicated radio host, nationwide syndicated radio host.
Mm-hmm.
And, when we were at Janine, this has been a while since I talked to her, but, some of these DJs are crossing over to Spotify. They are crossing. Apple does. I mean, I think Spotify, Pandora, they all have like radio too, where you can just do standard radio shows. And, AM radio has long since gone by the wayside. FM radio, I mean, XM is practically, well, it's Sirius XM now, but those guys are practically giving that service away because they're losing subscribers left and right. When you, again, the same thing with your TV. I am an 80s, 90s, early 2000s music guy. And I can build I have probably 20 different playlists for whatever mood I'm in, and you can do the same thing with Spotify too. Build whatever playlist you want, so you don't have to sift through the crap of listening to everything else that's on the radio. And I say, hey man, I want to, give me Five Finger Death Punch, maybe today I want to listen to Van Halen or Hendrix, or I want to go, Glenn Miller, whatever. Whoever I want to listen to, So this is definitely, I think this is, when you guys told me the other day, it was like, oh, let's go with this. I was like, oh man, come on guys, where are we going to go with this? And then I started doing the research, and it blew my freaking mind. Blew my mind.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's going to kind of be funny. Like, if I had to guess, this is how I think it's going to go, because companies like their money. It'll never change. But here's kind of like my guess to what it's all going to start to look like. Like you said, in about 10, 15 years, when satellite is completely obsolete, you're literally going to see, like, there will still be your Fubo. Basically, essentially, what I'm saying is all streaming services will have their cheaper versions with ads, which is like what they originally all get away from ads, get away from ads, get away from ads. They will all have their cheaper versions with ads. Their versions without ads are going to be extremely expensive.
Yep.
And it's quite literally going to go back to looking like, having cable. And I'd say the same thing eventually. I do believe it'll get to the same place with music. And as we see, like, I think it'll get to the point where even if you pay premium for Spotify, you're going to have to pay more.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. One thing we're not like, even like, because it's, to get political, I do think eventually it'll get to a point where legislation will be made where it's like, hey, sites like Spotify, sites like Apple Music, you got to pay these artists more by law. Like, I genuinely think, maybe not in the next, couple of years, but I think eventually it's going to come down the pipe where, because of the power that some of these streamers are going to have, they're going to make legislation to where the entertainers need to start getting paid. And because like, if you're not like a big name streaming artist, you only get like a tenth of a penny per listen. It's insane.
The guy who does Charlie Tadlock, the Calamity's Ring, who does our intro and outro music, he's on all these music, and I think you actually said a tenth of I actually think that sounds about right, what he gets paid to,
Hmm.
and I think he told me the other day, I saw him at the Y, and I was like, so what does that boil down to? He said, you know, maybe $3 or $4 every 2 or 3 months. I mean, it's not like
Hmm.
it's huge for them, but
Yeah.
you know, I, I, I think that we will definitely see this, and you can thank Metallica for that. Metallica was the one, actually, the drummer Lars Ulrich was the one who started the whole
Yep.
thing back in the late '90s, when you had the illegal shareware sites who were sharing music, and it's like, hey,
Hmm.
this is a violation of our copyright. We deserve to get paid. And you're right. I think now they're, with these streaming services gaining popularity, and in reality, Sean, we are in the infancy days of
Oh, big time. Yeah,
streaming
yeah, yeah.
services. We're still, and there are these. I mean, like you said, as the market's going to start thinning out,
Hmm.
because you're going to have
There's
all
going to be
the.
mergers.
Yep.
Yeah, they're going to start merging and just to compete.
And it'll become. I mean, we'll be back in the same kind of situation that we were in with DirecTV. I mean, it'll take a few
How
years.
funny would it be? How funny would it be if in like 50 years from now, when we're all like, when
I'm
when
dead.
when
That's
we're
okay.
much older. Now
I'm.
you'll be fine. You'll be fine. When in 50 years from now, right, where it's like Peacock and all of them have been lumped into one. They're all just one thing. Like, let's say Amazon buys everything, and then it's like Amazon has this new streaming service. It's like get all 50, get
Good.
50 of your favorite streaming services. And then, or you can pay for the gold package, which is 75 of your favorite
Yep.
streaming
Yep.
services. And then all we'll do is we'll put a box, over your house, and yeah, you'll deal with minimal commercial.
Yep.
That's literally, I could see that is
Yep.
eventually one of these,
Sad.
whoever the big winner in the end, you're gonna turn on your
Sad.
TV and you're gonna
Sad.
see a big old screen that's like, do I want to watch Paramount? Boom, you're gonna click the app, and then it's all gonna open.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all gonna be owned by the same person, and we're all just gonna be shitting in our own diapers and just living on.
Couple of closing notes. We can't talk about too much yet, but hopefully we have some exciting news this time next week about a possibly new partner to come along with us on the sponsor tour. We're very excited
Mm.
about this. We're developing this, which will allow us to do a lot more promotion and getting the word out. Again, tonight I noticed that we were managing between 10 to 15 live viewers, which was awesome. Tons of comments
Awesome.
over on the board. Our numbers on our streamer page was showing, our numbers are obviously growing, the amount of views that we're getting. And it's you guys. It's you guys. And again, still, and I'm going to repin the store back up to the top of the page once I get some updates to it. Shirts will be out on Thursday. Shirts are ready. Will be ready to go. So if you've got me as a person to pick up your shirt, it's out. It'll be out on Thursday. We still don't have. We haven't been pushing this a much, but our merch store is open. I had a bunch of kids approach me today when I dropped Briley off for cross country. Hey man, I want to buy a shirt and all this other stuff. So it's out there.
Nice.
Get us some merch. Thanks for listening. Sean, what do you got to end us out with tonight, buddy?
No, again, thank you all so much for joining us. I know this one was kind of a lighter note than what we usually talk about. Just safe travels to Travis. Hopefully, he's made it home safe by this point. On
Hopefully.
coming home from work. And again, to our listeners, thank you all so much for joining us alongside the ride tonight. And it was a little bit different than what you guys are used to, so we appreciate it. We appreciate you guys staying engaged and active, and we can't wait to talk to you guys next week. Again, please, we say it every single week. Be a friend, tell a friend. Again, we can't do it without you. The new potential sponsorships coming in, the merch store, all that kind of things. We're slowly growing. We're slowly getting better. And again, with all the different walks in life, where Andy is, where Travis is, where I am, we're each gaining a wealth of knowledge that we can put forth towards the show to make it better, to where hopefully we can retire and smoke weed every single day for the rest of our lives, and make a living doing
There you
podcasting.
go.
So
There you go.
again, thank you all. Thank you all so much.
Mm-hmm.
Can't wait to talk to you guys next week, and I hope you all have a good one. We'll talk to you soon.